Okay.
Hello, and good evening, and welcome to the Chaska Human Rights Commission meeting of Thursday, July 28, 2022. As we begin this evening, Elise, would you do the roll call for us?
Commissioner Kamen, Commissioner Hubbard,
Here.
Commissioner Welbert,
Here.
Commissioner Haga,
Here.
Commissioner White,
Here.
Commissioner Sanderson,
Here.
Commissioner Zayek, Chair Carlson.
Here. Excellent, thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda? We've got a pretty extensive agenda this evening.
So moved.
Thank you, Hannah. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Hannah, seconded by Jennifer to adopt the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes carry. Thank you. Tonight, we're very fortunate to have representatives of Casa with us tonight as our guest presentation. So I would invite you to the podium and ask you to introduce yourselves and share with us how Casa is here in our community, how the Human Rights Commission can be a partner with you. And Mary, it's good to see you, and take it away.
Thank you, Sarah, for the invitation. As you might be aware, Casa is now in Carver County, and we're working to get our community, our Latino community, more involved, more activated, create inclusive. Carver County has an initiative of communities of belonging, and we are part of that initiative. We want to activate our community to get involved, to know their leaders, to have a healthy life all around, whether it's at the parks, whether it's at the stores, whether it's in the schools, and we want to be an inclusive community. I came out of Riverview Terrace, lived in the mobile homes, and I have seen our kids, I have seen the struggles, and we want to change that. We want to empower our community so that we can continue to build a better, stronger community. And with that said, I attended the Immigrant Voices event, and I was part of the interpreters, and I saw the turnout, and I was excited that Chaska is doing something like this, where 20 years ago we did not have anything like that. But I also feel that we could do better as a community to support such events. So I invited my friend Emilia Avalos. We're very good friends. She runs Unidos Minnesota, and I'm going to let her tell you a little bit of what she does, and hopefully we can come up with a plan, some ideas of what we could do together to create a stronger Chaska. Okay, so I'll introduce you, and thanks for the invitation.
Buenas tardes, good afternoon. My name is Emilia González Ábalos. I am the Executive Director of Unidos Minnesota. We are a statewide organization that builds power for social, racial, and economic justice in Latinx communities or Latino communities across the state. So we have headquarters in the metropolitan area, including base or constituents in the surrounding metropolitan suburbs. We also have offices in southern Minnesota, including Mankato and Worthington, and offices in St. Cloud, Minnesota. So we work with low-wage Latino mixed-status families and their sons and their daughters. We historically built up our organization out of the Dreamer movement. Many of us were young dreamers. Dreamers is a term used, coined by the law, the first DREAM Act that was introduced in the federal level in 2001, that will provide a pathway to citizenship for thousands of young undocumented people that came to this country as children. I was one of those children, and out of that moment of our youth development, and with the understanding that the first DREAM Act was introduced in 2001, it's been 20 years. So I am 40. And we have 20 years of history of immigrant justice and immigrant rights in Minnesota, and Unidos Minnesota was cultivated as a result of that moment and the movement. We are a 501c3, 501c4, what is considered a power organization, and we have members that are engaged in this area predominantly. I can talk to you about the issues that the members in this area care about, our members in this area care about. One is jobs. They're interested in building socioeconomic mobility. there's a thing called occupational segregation. And we learned during the COVID pandemic that occupational segregation was the main systemic issue as of why essential workers, including black, like the predominantly black and brown folks, were dying, or their mortality was higher than the other workers. The second one is public safety and transit. The key issue is driver's licenses for all. In order for us to build a safe community, we have to be able to provide pathways for undocumented folks that live here, that are parents of predominantly US citizens, to be able to move around without fear. And we understand that the pathway for a citizenship that does not exist now relies on the federal government, but in the meantime, these families are our neighbors, they're workers, they're social services providers at times. They're beloved by somebody in this community. And having just access to leave and move around in a car without fear is a primary, it is a priority for folks to trust and build bridges with law enforcement and public safety organizations. It increases everyone's security. It allows for community cultivation and participatory democracy. This is good for everybody. And the third one is education and mental health. We have a crisis of mental health due to the isolation and the enhanced mortality of the pandemic. A lot of young people, and unfortunately in this area, we have known of folks that are no longer here with us due to untreated and unseen mental health conditions. We don't have enough providers across the state. There's waiting lists across the state to serve folks. We don't have enough clinicians. We don't have enough providers. And I think the results are seen in a local level beyond any other, like in the schools, right, in our communities. So how are we mobilizing resources in education to be able to provide that support? We work in other issues, and I can share with you all our platform, our system change platform, in which localities have a stake. It will be important for us, that is, as we go, especially because, the politics in Minneapolis are a little bit disconnected from what happens in the suburbs, right? We have, I live in a suburb too, that is like its own breathing animal on its own, and there's definitely issues that happen at the local level that are disconnected from what happens in our suburban communities. But there's a lot of similarities too. We would like to see more engagement from institutions at the local level in how they are supporting the inclusion, but institutional inclusion, not just having a welcoming face, an interpersonal face, but like institution and the institutionality, full wrapping and welcoming of folks regardless of immigration status in systems. There is a stake for local governance to be able to do that, and there is agendas that the Human Rights Commission can support. I cannot think of a better place to support what is quote unquote controversial issues in regards to human rights that this body. So I think my next invitation is to send you what we call the Immigrant and Refugee Bill of Rights, which is a platform that was developed by these families from across the state, including families in Chaska, and also in partnership with Muslim folks, refugees from Asian countries as well, and mixed status families in across race. This is not a new project. This has been around for, I will say, good 4 or 5 years, and there is many different elements that we're working on the state level. But for us, it will be important that the local governance help us having the local conversations with law enforcement, how, as we think of this public safety crisis and the cultivation of trust, how do we build a public safety institution that is efficient but also trusted, that is able to meet the challenges, some of the biggest challenges of our nation as we speak and of our times, and how we all root for each other to be successful. And that requires courageous conversations. That requires meeting with different multi-sectors to be able to accomplish that. We know that we are not going to have all the things that we want, but at this point there's one common thing that we all want, and that is a healthy community. I don't think there's anybody that does not want that. So thank you for the invitation, and I'm very appreciative of Mi Casa for their continuous partnership. And I don't know if you guys want to ask any questions.
Mary, who else is with you?
Veva, and Veva is with Mi Casa. She does her social media, so she doesn't want she's like, I'm in the back chair. But
I have not known Viva to be a wallflower.
But what we want to do is also, every time we talk about race and we talk about inclusion, we face what is addressed now or labeled as white fragility, right? We get argumentative, people get defensive, people become silent. And all of a sudden we see this giant raise up that it's the contrast of what we're trying to do. So we back out and we say, we're gonna do it our way, little by little. We have worked together for many years, and we have seen what Unidos Minnesota, how they can transform cities. And we're back here little by little, and when we receive this invitation, it's like, we're gonna hold hands with a giant to make these conversations happen, to create a healthier community. So we're looking to you to hopefully hold hands together and make a better and more inclusive community. That's really what we're here. So we appreciate the invitation. If anybody has questions, we're both here. Veva can answer some too.
I guess I will start. Thank you for being here, both of you. I have nothing but positive things to say about Mi Casa and the work you're doing in our community. And I have actually done food stuff with Viva over there. She has recruited my children to do more volunteer work. And so I guess I have a couple of questions. There's the policy piece, which I think there's lots of room for us to have to do some conversations around and have some community conversations around. And then there's the practical piece. You are very active and engaged in the community in terms of food insecurity and partnering with Garcia County Public Health and the school district, which I work for. And I have to say those, the pick and packs that you guys have been so instrumental in promoting and supporting have been absolutely incredible. As a child who grew up in a food secure environment, the dignity of that space, it's different than going to a food shelf. You know, it just felt different. And so I appreciate what you have partnered with different agencies to do to help that community belonging for people of different economic statuses. So I guess I'm wondering, there's that, what do you need from us in terms of both of those things? How can we support both the having some conversations about how we, from a policy perspective, help move the needle for the Latino community, and not just the Latino community, but frankly all of the various communities here that don't necessarily have a seat at the table or a strong voice. And then from a practical perspective, what are the boots on the ground things that we can help support you guys doing to be making an impact on the day-to-day lives of our community?
I'll let you start. No? Well, one of the things is, yes, you mentioned with the meal program, it's many agencies, right? It's Carver County coming together and serving the community. One of the things that a very close friend of mine said is, it is amazing. We have been doing this food distributions for the last 3 years, which is amazingly sad, because our families of low income, regardless of race and color, have been impacted and were highlighted with the pandemic. So every time we put food or we see somebody come through, it's heartbreaking. It's a broken system. right? And it shouldn't be happening. Yet, we're in the U.S., which is the top of the food chain, and what the best country in the world, so we know, so we say, and we have this issue here in our communities. We know it comes from above, comes from leadership, and from a system that's broken, and we want to help and work together to change that. As much as we like to give food out, we know it has to change at a different level to help our communities. So we are working together, and this is why we're here today, see what we could do and how we can have these conversations as far as, we work with a lot of youth. So we have years, we have hope. We get them involved. That's why your sons, your family, as they get involved in volunteering, because we're starting farther back versus us. So we work with parents, but we work with youth, because they're our future voters, our future leaders that can hopefully change the system for us or with us. You.
So I think that there's, you said two things, like the boots on the ground and the policy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like there's that immediate practical things that we can do to support the efforts, and then there's
Okay,
a
the immediate
longer
practical.
term helping
Okay.
to push things forward.
I think that in the immediate, it continues to be the basic necessities. Food, casa comida, sustento.
So
Like,
food,
there's this thing in
food,
Spanish.
housing,
Food, housing,
health too.
health, and that includes
Sustainability.
mental health, and
Income.
casa, comida, vestido, y sustento, and like having jobs, right? Those are the basic necessities. They are working on the immediate, right? When you're able to provide, I think this is the key. One size does not fit all. And having cultural competency is a courageous attempt of reaching equity. You have an institution that is in the process of building capacity to meet that cultural competency at the level of the need that the residents of these counties need. And I think it will be like, how do we make sure that Mi Casa continues to exist, that continues to build capacity to be able to do what they do now? And sort of understand the scope. What if one size does not fit all? Who is doing this type of work for the diverse communities or minority communities in the area? That is the one thing for the immediate. It looks like we're going to head at an economic recession, and the inflation is at 9% at the moment. How are we preparing resiliency for immediate needs? What is the county's, the county maneuvers the budget of social services, right? What's the alignment between city governance and county governance? How are you guys influencing county governance in the investment that they build for minority communities? And I think for the boots on the ground continues to be the depolarization of our issues. We don't want driver's license to be a partisan issue. It should be a community issue, regardless of party affiliation. So we need to have these courageous conversations with law enforcement, but also with folks that have some information gaps in terms of why don't people apply for citizenship, right? Why don't people just get in line? Why don't people just go get a license? Like, how do we inform our community about these issues that are happening to their neighbors? There's a lot of things happening in terms of policy, but unfortunately, because we live in such a polarized era, most things become partisan when they shouldn't have to be partisan. So how do we continue to partner to bring multi-sector into having these conversations? What is the role of the Human Rights Commission to bring perhaps the chamber, perhaps law enforcement, and perhaps us to be able to wrestle with these problems that we have right now?
And remind me, driver's license is a state issue, not a federal issue, right?
It is a state issue. And yet, what the Chaska chief says matters. What your county sheriff says matters.
So
Because
what have they said?
the Sheriff County Association, the County Sheriff's Association can help us move the needle at the state level. Yes.
So have you had any, I have a couple of questions, sorry.
Yes.
I'm behind. So what are the roadblocks for getting a license then? We just take a driver's license. What stops an average Latinx from getting a license?
So the problem is not having a Latinx person apply to the license. As long as you're a citizen or a permanent resident, you can apply for a driver's license because you can provide a social security number. The challenge is for folks out of status. That is, in the state of Minnesota, there's approximately 90,000 undocumented folks that have lived and that have established roots in the state, that have at least been in this state for at least 10 years. That is what the data from the American Policy Institute throws. And like there's some fluctuation. Some folks some data shows 120,000. The median is 90,000. We still need to get disaggregated numbers from the latest census. Why does that matter for the Latinx community or the BIPOC community overall? Because that affects the social upward mobility of the whole family. This is not just an undocumented person trying to get a license. This is the breadwinner for Latinx students that go to our schools, that have roadblocks to go to school conferences, that might be stopped going to work, that might have roadblocks to show any type of identification to get a better apartment.
Or a library card, or a
library
community
card.
center membership.
It's been a long, I'm sorry. It's been a long time since I applied for a license, and I've never applied for a state ID. So if you apply for a state ID, you need a social security number as well?
Absolutely. You need a social security number, and if you're not a citizen, you need proof of status. This was not the case forever. Like this, there was anybody that showed one of the accredited IDs that in the past included a passport or a consular ID, which is like it's a legit ID, could have access to driver's license. In 2003, that changed with Governor Pawlenty. Governor Pawlenty closed that access for undocumented folks. So the people that were able to get a license before 2003 can often renew. But it is the people that moved or lived in Minnesota after 2003 that are outside of the access.
Or that group.
Oh, that group,
Or
yeah.
kids that arrived early,
Oh.
that are not born,
That's right.
right? So they grew old, they can't apply, which is the Night Dreamer Act.
This is remember that in 2003 was the implementation, around 2002, 2003 was the implementation of the Patriot Act. So a lot of national security issues, a lot of enhanced data sharing, being able to have a safe home due to terrorist attacks. That was why we now have an enhanced ID, right? Like we adopted also an ID that that can keep now our flights safe. In Minnesota, you can get an enhanced ID or a real ID, but also a standard ID. You can choose which one, right? And we're not asking the state government to allow undocumented folks to get an enhanced ID. We're asking the state government to allow folks, regardless of status, to apply and run through the process of learning regular transit and traffic rules, have the opportunity to take the test, and get a driver's license if they pass it. We just want folks to be able to go in the line of the process. Right now, there's no line. The sheriff of Scott County supported this, and I think he was in leadership of the Sheriff Association, and his support was very important. We are still in the work of making sure that every single police department that lives side by side with immigrant communities is able to support this in good faith. We believe that this is not a partisan or political issue. This is a public safety neighborhoodly issue. So that is how the process was deterred. It's going to be 20 years of that change next year.
So we want, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just going to ask a bunch of questions, I'm sorry. So it affects a person's ability to get to work, right? If they're not working around wherever they live, right? So public transportation's important. And I'm just going to talk about Chaska.
Yeah.
Are we utilizing Southwest Transit? I can't, maybe someone can help me. I know you can call them up and they kind of operate like a taxi service. And Prime, Southwest Prime. Do we know if we're utilizing that more? And it's like $2 a ride or $10 a ride.
And sometimes the language is a barrier, and to get to point A to point B, normally, right, would take you 10 minutes at the most if you're driving. On our current public transportation, you get a tour of the city sometimes before you get to point A to point B, which is a great thing, but it takes too long.
Right.
So if you're utilizing for work, you really, really have to plan ahead. And if you have your kids and you have schedules and it doesn't operate after certain hours, so extra to be able to drive your kid to an extracurricular activity, it doesn't qualify. It just creates another barrier. They're doing a great job, just we gotta catch up.
And I can send folks some, if I can find more disaggregated data by county. I only have the state, I don't have concentration of mixed status families, but I can send some data your way. You know, unfortunately, because we haven't, like the federal government, at the federal level, we haven't been successful in moving a bipartisan approach. Folks continue, like these mixed status families, undocumented workers continue to be some of the most segregated sector in the workforce, highly employed, but highly exploited, and also underpaid, and the primary victims of wage theft across the state. So time is money. Folks take the risk, they read the manual, and I will share the quote verbatim that I hear from a lot of families when they take the risk to drive without a license. I said, but like, why do you take this risk? What kind of, even my father, when he didn't have a license, he will say, I know I don't have a license, but I have the license of the Lord, and I have to help my family. I have to make my bread to provide for my family. This is what a lot of people say, tengo la licencia de Dios, con la licencia de Dios.
God's blessing.
So the reality is that folks are driving. And there's people that make bank of that. Insurance companies are insuring those cars, and they know that there's no license. They take a consular ID, but they insure at a higher rate. Car dealerships don't care if you have a license or not. They just want an ID. And they give loans at a very high rate. This is like I think some of the questions, I've gone to some of the food distribution, and some of the questions are like, how come they have this need, but they have a nice car? Because a nice car deters the police from stopping you. They go into high predatory loans. That's right. You're correct.
I understand everything you're saying. You're talking about high predatory loans. You're talking about the credit score is not there. You don't have a job. They're looking at the person's like, you can drive that for $1,000 a month, and you're calculating what you need to do in order to get that vehicle to get from point A to point B to do all that. I hear you. I know where you're coming from. What can we do to connect you? So let me ask this question. Have we talked to the police chief of Chaska yet? Have we sat down in a group? And then the next question is, have we talked to the sheriff and been part of a group there?
The police chief is new,
And we're in conversations. We just hosted the picnic with the police last week.
Yep, heard it
I
went well.
believe it was a great success. It's to build those relationships with our community. It wasn't only the Latino community, it was also, we saw our Somali community, we saw our Indian community, our Asian community. So it felt like an international festival. We were really excited to see this happening. We have not had, I think we've had these conversations with the sheriff in the past. But we're looking, I believe one of the ways that you can help is depending on what kind of involvement you have, where we can start educating, like the chamber or the police department, and have these conversations before things go out.
At the state level, the Minnesota Chamber has supported this measure in the past, and so does the Minneapolis and St. Paul Chamber. But local impact is local conversation. We want to make sure that we create the cultural support to be able to successfully and multi-sectorally win this when we have the opportunity. So having the conversation, we are not, honestly, we're not interested of having woke conversations of platitudes. We want to solve this and have dialogue and just hear what's folks' hesitation. We are not an ideological organization or like an ideological vanguard. We are a democracy vanguard, regardless of status. So I think if you can help us catalyze those conversations, we want to hear where the sheriff is. We want to provide the right information if there's some assumptions that are incorrect. We want to hear where the chamber is, where the city council is, and also your representatives, your state representatives, and go from there.
So have you talked to any representatives or state senators that represent this area yet?
So are you still in Pratt's district?
No.
No.
What is your next district?
Julia Coleman is the state senator right now. I think she's still going to be our state senator for some. And then Representative Bowe and Representative Nash will be our representatives moving forward.
Right.
So you have sort of bipartisan,
No.
you have
No.
multi-partisan? No, just red,
You're in a
solid red?
yeah, you're in a
So
Republican.
we
Well,
need
then
to
that's
have
a challenge.
conversations. We need to have
They
conversations.
move in as late, right? Like in the last session, Leader Gazelka just will ask everyone to fall in line and we wouldn't even have conversations. Because, and there's an assumption that this does not happen in my district. This is not our problem, this is a Minneapolis problem,
Right.
but it's everywhere.
So help us create that consciousness that it is happening here. You know, we are living here.
How many registered voters do you think?
How many registered voters
Yeah,
are in the area?
Yeah,
I'm not sure. Latinos?
yes.
We can check on the van and send you the information.
I'm sorry, I'm processing, so in my mind, I'm trying to
that's
figure out
fine.
best way I know how to help you besides help put food in the car, but what kind of connections can we make? So everybody here has a connection of some sort, and so how can we connect you to where you want to be?
I will also think of the League of Women Voters, if you have a league, a local league.
We do.
Yeah, like we will be interested
As a
in
matter of
talking to
fact.
the League of Women Voters.
Yeah?
And I can give you, I mean, in terms of voter turnout, Latinos are the highest voting bloc, the highest growing voting bloc in the nation. I think a Latino turns 18 every 4 seconds or something like that, a Latino citizen across the nation. And there are shared values. We cannot assume block vote. It's contested, like due to like religious beliefs. 30% of Latinos in Minnesota vote Republican. The rest vote Democrat. The growing majority, younger people, especially from mixed status families, will have an inclination because of immigration to support who supports their family, who does not want to deport my parents, right? And in Minnesota, the median age of Latinos is younger than every other race, and that's 23. Our population is very young, We are increasing graduation rates. The high school here has increased graduation rates of Latinos. And there's emerging smaller communities that are that are up in the test of time because of their workforce. Austin is not a ghost town because of immigrant and predominantly Latino and East African population. Worthington is the same. Northfield, St. Cloud. And like all of these essential workers kept us safe at home. They were working with their hands and their bodies while we were socially isolating. It's about if we're serious about their essentiality, we have to also give them the tools to be able to at least take a step of courage to recognize some of their work in our society.
I don't want Martin and I to dominate the conversation, but so Sheriff Cameron has a group called Crucial Conversations or Critical Conversations. Do you know if anybody from Casa is involved in that?
Not at this point. And we saw the meeting at Riverview Terrace. We were not involved because we had another event at the time, but we would like to get involved and partner, definitely.
I know Sarah and I have talked about ways that we can.
And this is actually how this invitation came about to happen because of that conversation. But we can't do this alone, and neither can you.
No.
We need to unite and we need to work together. When we talk about, I keep hearing in Carver County, communities of belonging, and communities of belonging, we can't belong if we can't drive. If we can't take our kids, as simple as driving to the groceries, it's a risk. It's a risk.
And like I said, these are predominantly low-wage workers. Time is literally money. You cannot spend your day in public transit and then go home, prepare a meal, be a parent. And our folks are highly employed. We have a very small unemployment rate in mixed status communities. So not only they're employed, they're overemployed because they need 2 or 3 jobs to be able to provide the basic income to have a family. So the workplace segregation and the high morbidity during the COVID pandemic could have been mitigated with something that has very little to do with money. This is a cheap, self-sustained solution. It does not cost anything. No tax-paying dollars at all. People will pay. People pay. There's also a fraud element. There's fraud in our community. There's folks that promise a driver's license and they fraudulently obtain money from people, and people are willing to pay all kinds of money for this. This is also not a voter suppression issue because the licenses can be marked as none for voting. But we already have a hard time mobilizing eligible voters from BIPOC communities, so I don't know, like immigrants are not interested in voting. And they know they can vote because it's also an inadmissibility in case there's a pathway to citizenship at some point. And I think the other ideological challenge is language. The manuals have been translated for a long time for citizens and permanent residents. People don't need to read the Lord of the Flies in order to be able to drive. People need to understand traffic and transit to be able to keep our community safe.
Where is there a bill that's been introduced, or where is the driver's license conversation at this moment?
The bill in the last session was introduced by Leader Winkler, and it passed the House. In the Senate, it was not put on the floor because we don't have the majority in the committee, especially in the Transportation Committee. there is no support. We made all the concessions possible. Having a marked driver's license, not for both, like really make it a different color, all the things. We agreed to all the things and above and beyond. And still at the floor, no Republican on the Senate side was supportive. In the House, there was support from the Worthington, Representative Hamilton, Representative Kosnick was also support. He represents Lake Village. And that's about it. I think there were conversations with other senators, but at the end, it became a partisan issue. And we have an opportunity in the next legislature. Like, this is the moment where we need to have those conversations. So by January, some folks have more clarity about the opportunity that we have to improve our communities. We have a new leader. We will have a new leader. Senator Gazelka is out of the Senate. So I think the leader that the Senate at least is looking for is Jeremy Miller, who represents, I think, College Town. Do you guys remember the different campuses of the U of M? So it's Duluth.
Mankato?
Not the other one.
Morris?
Moorhead?
Another one.
Crookston.
Another one. Crookston what?
Crookston.
There's one that has two cities, Fargo, Moorhead. Jeremy Miller, I think, represents Moorhead-ish area, something like that. I'm not exactly sure, but it's Jeremy Miller, who is going to be the leader of the majority. And yeah, like the folks, I think we're interested in this area because we don't want to talk to our echo chamber. We want to talk courageously with folks that have differences. And we believe we can have a productive conversation in Chaska.
You're in the right county. You're in the right county. So if you can put your foot in the county or get in and start talking to people, I think we talked about Coleman. She's, what committee is she on?
Well, she's on transportation. So this is, the biennium is ended, so we'll see what the committee
Where she's
assignments
going.
are next year, but she was on transportation, so I think there's an entry point there, so.
I think you're looking for, we obviously can't do anything about driver's license. I mean, we can do helping you other ways, but I think you're in the right county, and I think some of us may have the ability to network with the right people or get you in the right spot. You just have to be willing to have that conversation. I mean, you've got the vast majority of the, I think, Republican leadership out this way. But I think the police chief and the sheriff, for sure, I think they're really interested in improving their relationship with the community. I think that's an easy door for us to get into and help with that and facilitate that.
I think you can do something about driver's license. Look at all the thoughts you just had.
I
Look at
do,
all
but
the-
that requires some, what?
That's what it requires. That's what it requires, people to become aware and help facilitate those conversations. So you can do something about it.
That is a big deal because it legitimizes the conversation with the validity that it's about human rights, first of all, and also that it is not a Minneapolis issue. It is legitimate, all of our issues. And as time progresses, we might be able to get folks from this area that can share their story, but we need to make sure that they will be safe, right? That they won't be judged, or that we can have, like I don't want to invite our leaders to be able, like for somebody to just dump ideology on them. So, but in the meantime, we're not fragile, we can have the conversation.
Jen?
I had a few questions, but they've been, but I mean, thank you for asking them and thank you for your thoughtful and wonderful answers. I've learned so much tonight, so I really appreciate you giving us all these ideas, and I look forward to seeing the stuff that you send to us about our area so that we can figure out how we as a commission are able to maybe, do another community conversation. We have talked about, we would like to do another Immigrant Voices conversation again. One thing we're wondering about is how can we involve more people? Because that was a fantastic event and very few people came. And I would love to have people hear the stories of their neighbors and to have discussions with, what are things that, like, as a European lifelong citizen of America, I had no idea how hard it is for some people to get a driver's license until I started having conversations with my friends and neighbors that were struggling with that. And so I think if we can figure out ways to even have more conversations or panels or something, that would be great to just let people in the community learn more about these issues. And then, like Martin had said, that as a commission, we might not be able to do much about the driver's license. This is not an activist kind of a group, but we are here to educate and converse with the community. And so what you answered is, the perfect solution. We can have conversations with people so that they can go out and,
Activate someone.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think, sorry, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
I think we have, as we live in this moment, local human rights commission can become that catalyst and that hub for the conversations, and we can take, we as a convener, it helps us catalyze what's next, or like we just need some of that support, that this is that, like I said, that this is a valid conversation to have that is happening in our communities. I will also offer more data. From the 90,000, let's say the 90,000 undocumented folk universe in Minnesota, 60-ish% is of Latino cultural heritage. Approximately 14% is African, undocumented African folks, and the rest of is Asian folks. Now, it is important to name that the deportation rate for Black immigrants is disproportionately higher because of racial profiling and encounters with law enforcement. That is the reality. Black folks are a higher rate of being deported, first by driving for being Black, and second by having their ID checked. And if they don't have a driver's license, they are put in deportation proceedings immediately. Your jail facility cooperates with ICE. Carver County Jail Facility houses all the ICE deportations, the ICE holds in the area. Some of them are minor incidents, misdemeanors, or like traffic violations. Checking in for, we don't know what rate the Chaska Police Department, for example, if people don't have an ID, what is the policy? Do they have to check them in for their fingerprints? If they do that, then the ICE hold becomes inevitable. So that is like some of the questions that we can look at internally.
Great. Hannah, any specific questions?
Yeah, I mean, kind of going off the purpose of the group being education, can you, what's important for people to know about occupational segregation? Like what is important for the average Chaska person to know about that and why it's important?
I think I can send you guys a national report. In the national spectrum, it disproportionately impacts Latina women. In terms of why is it relevant right now, is because occupational segregation increased death. So we need to look at your COVID morbidity numbers
Okay.
here. Like that's the way that we can look at the impact of this county. We need to look at your numbers. We need to look at your racial desegregation and compare that with the job or the occupation in the alignment. Not all the people that work in the county live in the county, but we can make some assumptions there. Occupational segregation for folks that have a status just speaks on the challenges of our education system. More and better paid jobs require credentials. Your high school diploma is a credential, an associate degree is a credential, a bachelor's degree is a credential. And also, occupational segregation can happen in disproportionately ways for Black Americans due to the pipeline from school, the school to prison pipeline. Folks' ability to get a job can be deterred by a criminal record. So it impacts different communities in different ways. But I can send you guys a report. And I think like the opportunity is that if folks are serious about disparities in this county and in Chaska, ARPA funding that is going to be disbursed again is supposed to help the folks that were the most impacted. Nationally, Black and brown people were disproportionately impacted. Higher mobility. Black Americans had the highest morbidity in the state of Minnesota. Black males. So ARPA funding is supposed to mitigate that. So how are you coordinating with city government to talk to county government and how are they asking for that accountability of some of those resources? There's a bunch of decisions on budgeting that are going to be made in the next 4 to 5 months in terms of the second disbursement of ARPA money.
Sienna, any questions?
I do. So I know you guys briefly talked about youth involvement, and as the youth representative on the commission, it's my job to kind of reach out to my peers and the youth population as a whole. So I know a lot of the issues you guys are trying to focus on are kind of large for a student like myself to do, but what are smaller ways that I can reach out to my peers or my fellow friends or classmates to do to help?
I can tell you one thing in terms of this issue. Because DACA is challenged in the courts, we are seeing undocumented youth again. Used to be that because of DACA, as folks turned 16, they were able to request a work permit, and they were able to graduate with a driver's license and a high school diploma, and then the Minnesota DREAM Act comes into play, which is an approved state policy. We have a good DREAM Act. But because of that DACA challenge, you're gonna see more immigrant folks without status not having a pathway for a work permit. It's the first time this year we saw this and last year we saw a little bit of graduates last year, but we're seeing more graduates this year. These high school graduates that are finding out that they can access a driver's license because of a social security number, because they can apply to DACA. So you're gonna see more and more like school buddies. We're going back to 2012 where we didn't have anything. So it is important to
We're gonna see a lot of youth
go
without
back
hope.
to ask, yes.
Yeah, without hope in our community. Without a hope to get a driver's license, without a possibility to get a job.
We need to ask counselors what's the information they're given. If they have assumptions that because they don't have a status, they can't go to college, that is not accurate. So we need to reassess again how high schools are taking this information, how they're updating on the ins and outs of immigrant students that don't have a status. I think that is a very important youth component that only you will know, because they won't tell their teachers, right? They just don't show up for driver's ed. They might just, some students, we're seeing more students kind of like, why would I get my high school diploma if I'm not gonna be able to go to college on this false assumption? I'm not gonna be able to get a job.
I'm gonna ask this question. Sorry to interrupt you, because otherwise I'm gonna forget. The older I get, I just forget. Why, and we've already answered this question, but I'm gonna ask again, why is a driver's license important? I realize it's the ability to move from left to right, but you can also walk. You can take a bus. Is the driver's, at 16, I walked. I can have a driver's license all I want to, but I can't afford a car. And I had to walk to work. I'm not saying people need to walk to work now. I'm not saying they need to buy a car, but my ability to get a license or not get a license shouldn't affect whether I graduate high school, whether I go to college, whether I start a business. Having a degree shouldn't affect whether or not I start a business, whether or not I get a well-paying job. How do we educate the Latin population or people of color, whatever it may be, just people in general, in Chaska, that those things are important, but they're not the end all? How do we set something up, or what are your ideas that we can do to talk to these young people, grab them now, to help them move forward? I understand license is important. I understand for a certain segment, but I own a movie theater, so I have a lot of kids that work for me. They're all different. Some are Latin, some are Asian, some are whatever you want to call them. They're all over the place. Not all of them have driver's license. Some of them walk to work. Some of them walk from Chaska to Chanhassen to get to work. How do we educate them? What can we give them? Does that make sense? Because what I'm hearing you say is people aren't going to school, they don't plan on going to a post-secondary anything because they don't have a license and they're starting to look at their status. We have a lot of help wanted signs around, and a lot of people are paying enough money where you're above the poverty line.
What other form of identification would you have to fill out? Is it an I-9?
They have to fill out the I-9
So
to
we
get
can,
hired, get paid.
So I think it's a cultural milestone. There's a cultural component to it. As you're going to high school, you have milestones. You go to driver's ed, you learn how to drive a car, you graduate from high school, you sort of go to college. At the root of the problem, you're right, it's not the driver's license. It is the ability to have a work permit. Like, folks want to work. Folks want to be able to enjoy the pride of the labor of their hands. Our community has a lot of pride on their job. I still, to this day, my dad is 67, but he got really sick with COVID, and he's disabled now. And still to this day, he remembers all the the buildings and the windows that he cleaned back in the 90s. He still tells me when we drive by in downtown, I cleaned that building. And I'm like, yes, and you cleaned that building. You like, that happened in that building. And you saw prints in that building. I still remember all of those things. So you're right. They don't need a driver's license for that. In the state of Minnesota, we need an ID for pretty much everything. And folks can get additional IDs. It's the Social Security component that gives people access to many of the things that we do every day. There is some mitigation that we can do with education, especially on the entrepreneurial side. Folks can open businesses regardless of status. Folks can be consultants regardless of status. Undocumented folks pay taxes with ITIN numbers, left and right. People want to file their taxes. People understand that the beautiful streets and the great parks and all the facilities that we're privileged to live around come from tax-paying money. So folks file their taxes with their ITIN numbers. So the IRS receives that income from workplaces. And with the 1099s, they're taxed on a higher rate, and people use that entrepreneurial side to be able to contribute to the economy, but also sort of legitimize their labor. We don't have, as we are coming back to in-person meetings, there's an opportunity to provide more support to the schools so that they know that these things can be done. The thing is that the dominant narrative in media and, personal discretion don't necessarily articulate that there are ways, right? Like, people don't want to talk about this because it can be perceived as controversial. Everybody goes back to, well, you shouldn't be here in the first place. And that's the end of the conversation. But like the fact is, living in reality and being pragmatic, people are here. 90,000 people are here. They've been here for over 10 years through anti-immigrant rhetoric, through pandemic, through death, through economic crisis. Folks are still here.
30 years later, we're still here. And when even to, it's not just a driver's license, it's also an ID. If you go to Target and you want to return something that didn't fit you, you didn't like, for whatever reason, what's the first thing they ask for? An ID. If you go, they ask for some type of identification when you're doing a return at Target, at Walmart.
If you buy medications, like
Oh,
cold
yeah,
medicine.
buy prescriptions. That we don't have, even in the schools, I mean.
You're still going to a
For
club.
what?
Yeah, and unfortunately in
I
the
guess,
schools, you know what is happening, and I'm gonna speak for the Shakopee schools. In order to walk into the school, you have to scan your ID, your driver's license, for the machine to issue a ticket that you can walk in. So if I have parents outside of the schools that are not gonna go inside
I am.
during business hours.
This is a robust conversation that could go on
Stop.
for another 3 hours.
But
I
these are-
think,
sorry, these are the conversations.
Oh,
we
yeah,
need you
no,
to help-
100%.
Help facilitate with other people.
well, and that's, I think the next step, as we look to how we can continue to support and learn more about those avenues, I think my proposal would be, as we've talked, Sarah and I were actually talking about this related to the strategic plan, is creating a community partnerships committee where we could have in a smaller group conversation to sort of generate those ideas to bring back to the commission, to have some more concrete things that we could do to support you. So I guess I don't know that we need a motion to create a committee. We haven't done that, I don't think, in the past. But I would certainly support that. And then we can do some immediate follow-up as a smaller group to determine some more concrete and achievable things
I have a
that
lot
we
of
might
questions.
that we might do.
I have,
And we
You're
can
not the
plan-
only one. I could talk all night. I'm like, Mary, let's have coffee right now.
So
We can
can
plan
we.
a
So can we.
weekend retreat to continue this conversation.
As you can see, we're passionate about this,
Yes.
and we can take this over to our house.
Yeah, and we can, like, you guys are having the conversations about immigrant stories, right? We can be the follow-up, the deep dive.
Well, and I think that's part of that next step, I think, is that we as a smaller group, and we can come together outside of business, meeting business, and start some of those conversations. So if people are in favor of that, I think
I think
that's
that's
a
an
logical
excellent
next step.
idea.
And I'd love to be part of it.
And I know that there are many of us, or all of us, that want to be as part of that group. I can only offer to you, you said earlier in your comments, we want somebody to come alongside and to hold your hand. I think that the Human Rights Commission is willing and has ability and talent and skill, and I think we can be beneficial partners to you. And I pledge on behalf of the commission, can I do that?
Sure.
Okay, that we will do so.
Thank you, Madam
So,
Chair.
you're very welcome. Thank you for taking the time. As I said, or Kaylee said, we could be here all night.
Thank you for the invitation.
as always. We'll look for the information. Who of us on the commission would like to be part of this community partnership discussion? Oh, I see a hand to my left.
I mean, I do it for my job.
Yes, I'll join
Okay.
that.
And if you would write me down too. How's that?
We'll start that there.
We'll start
Before
that.
you go, because, I'm sorry, I don't want to carry this on, this is just real quick. The reason why I'm asking some of these questions is because I'm on the Citizen Task Force to redo the community center. And part of when I talk about the teens, is there a program or is there like a teen center? Is there something I can bring back to that group to say, we're missing this segment? And the reason why I can't wait till later is because we're in the process. And it would be nice to have some of this information real fast. So if you say, yes, that's a great idea, I can move with that by saying, we're missing this segment of the population.
I don't want to speak for you, but I think your efforts to begin soccer this year have been incredible. And I've seen the joy on the faces. But that's just me, my observation. Please, Mary.
We feel definitely that the community center has that reputation. I mean, I came out of Chaska, and I remember going as a youth to the community center. And I love the pool, I have fond memories of it. I have seen a disconnection after the pandemic from our Latino community attending some of the classes and funding changing and barriers. We are in conversations currently to support some of what we believe is amazing programming that the community center already has with Price and Rents. Because of the grant that we received with public health, we're hoping to be able to bridge that and revamp, because it doesn't look like the community center that we have now looks sad compared to how it looked when we were there in the 90s. And we want to see our kids involved in the community. That's where we work. We start at 3-year-olds, and soccer starts as 3 years old to get involved in your community. It prevents mental health. It creates, we have a problem with obesity and diabetes. We need to prevent instead of putting fires out. And we're actually reaching out to the community center saying, we need to work together. And how do we do it?
Do you have her email address?
I do indeed.
Do you mind if I email you?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I add something? I think it's less about the brick and mortar and more about the implementation of the programming. What kind of diverse programs are you going to have? A DEI strategy. Again, this ARPA money that I was speaking about is entirely connected on well-being and like physical activity. How do we mitigate chronic illness that we know is my background is public health. So there's socioeconomic disparities in the socioeconomic determinants of health. So what is a DEI strategy that the community center is going to implement as you open the doors? And it's the job of people as they open the doors. How are you weaving that in your budget? Are you having, what's the hiring strategy for the year-round opening of the doors, like people in the front desk that can speak different languages, that can look like, that is multiracial, just as the community of Chaska is.
Multiracial and bicultural, and does it reflect our
Multilingual.
community? So we're working on, we have been reaching out, we started, because it needs to be done. As simple as a Zumba class.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, bye. No,
Thank
I
you.
will- I will email you in a couple of days, maybe next Monday or so we can, if you don't mind.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. We have a lot to go through real quickly.
Sorry.
No.
That was wonderful, though.
Yeah, it was great.
Minutes from last month. I noticed one thing, and I've already shared that with Elise for correction of misspelling. Is there any content that needs to be changed? If not, may I have a motion to approve the June 23rd meeting?
So moved.
Motion made by Kaylee, seconded by
Second it.
Martin. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The treasurer's report. Elise, tell us about our money.
So as you can see, we've updated this through July. A few new things that we've put on there. What we didn't have previously was the books that the commission met for the Carver County Library and the Immigrant Voice. It was, connected with the Immigrant Voices program. June, we had, I started to kind of portion out the Pride celebration while expenses were more. There were 2 donations received to offset, so that stayed within the approved budget that had been given to that particular committee. We also had additional commissioner t-shirts that were purchased. And then previously, River City Days had a budget had been approved for that. You can see that we did need to pay for the booth this year, and so there's approximately, $150 left remaining, and as those costs come in, we'll itemize it and share it with you. So right now, your balance for the remainder of the year is $2,235.31. And just a note, we are starting to work on the 2023 budget, and included in there is $5,000 for the commission again.
Does that take into account inflation? I'm serious. I'm not making a joke. I'm serious. Because it's going to cost more to put on MLK breakfast. The price of food is going up. It's going to cost more. I mean, the reality is it's going to cost more. Can we do 6? I mean, all they can do is say no. I mean, right now we have, did I say 300? So that's 350, 1450 in donations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you add that 1450 to the 5,000, that's $6,400. So I would just throw that out to them and say that, members of the community are supporting this. However, we're also not allowed to, I don't know, advertise. Anybody can, sorry, I'm not trying to hold anybody up, but I mean, if we're putting numbers in, if we start now, maybe we can get something.
I agree. I mean, we sat at $2,000 for many, many years, and we got up to $5,000. If it wasn't for the generous donations that we've received this year, we would not have been able to pull off some of the events that we did, particularly as an example is the books. So I would ask that City Council take a look at increasing our budget from $5,000 to $6,500. I think that's extremely reasonable. And thank you for bringing that to our attention, Martin. Are there any questions about the budget? I'm sorry, the treasurer's report. Then may I have a motion to approve the treasurer's report?
A motion to approve it.
Motion made by Martin. Is there a second?
Second.
Hannah, thank you. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor of approving the treasurer's report for July signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ayes carry. Thank you. Speaking of River City Days, how's River City Days?
Well,
It's gonna be hot.
yeah.
Could be hot.
It's in 2 days. It's tomorrow. What is today?
Tomorrow.
Thursday. It's tomorrow. Oh, yeah. So we ended up going with popsicles. We have 1,000 popsicles to give away.
How are we going to keep them cold?
I don't know yet.
Right.
Because we don't have electricity.
I'll figure that out by tomorrow.
Okay.
Don't worry about it.
We can use the fans.
What'd you say? What'd you say?
She said that you can use the fans.
Oh, yes, you could use the fans. We'll take care of that. So anyway, we have 1,000 popsicles to give away. I'll probably end up bringing some, and then we run out, go get some more, bring them back, da-da-da-da. We also have some other things. We have, add some extra stuff that I have. So we've got a little spin wheel that I talked about in questions. If you have an idea on a question, please feel free to email me. I need 10 questions, what those questions are. So they're kind of diverse questions. But we have Kit Kats to give away.
Nice.
We have Poppets to give away. We have, there's a story behind each one of these, but we won't worry about that right now. We have Twix to give away.
Are we eligible to spin the wheel and get candy?
You can, yeah. We have Play-Doh to give away, and then we have some mints that maybe we can put on a bowl if somebody wants to walk up, they can have a bowl. So, yeah, plenty of food and stuff for people to touch. I do have a question, we don't have electricity. Did, I forgot his name, oh Lord, Kevin, I'm so sorry, Kevin, I know you can see. Did he put together a,
We haven't had a chance yet, but
Okay.
that was something we were talking about.
okay,
So I think what we could do is create some sort of flip book or something like that, of pictures and whatnot that people can come up and look at.
okay.
Does that work? Other ideas?
Or we could put them on a poster board or something, people can just see it.
Time constraints, a flip book might be easier. I don't know.
If he put it together in digital format, could he do that? Would it take longer to print or put together and
Well,
put a
we'll have
bunch
to
of?
put it together in a digital format anyway, do some sort of presentation, and we could just print it off.
Okay,
I think if we had a screen that people could come up and look at, people like to see, a screen.
if he could put it together digitally, I'll figure out how to get the power to it.
Okay.
I pull things off at the end, don't worry about it, we'll figure it out.
I believe it.
Okay. Okay, and we have the fans as well. This stuff I'll bring tomorrow,
Okay?
so I know you're gonna set up things earlier in the
About
day.
3,
Yep, and so
2:30 to 3.
I don't work tomorrow, so I had a lot of errands to do, but I'll drop this stuff off tomorrow, and I think my shift is the last one of the night. But I'll have everything there for the first shift and ready to go.
I know we have like a print off of answers for this wheel or email or something.
Yeah, if you email me the questions with your answer, if you have any, I'll print it up and we'll put it on cards.
Okay.
The wheel that you write on it, it's dry erase and kind of spins around, and we'll have free spaces or whatever. It's about big, sit on the table or the floor or whatever. So,
So for Saturday morning, that's my shift. Will
I
the
don't work
stuff
Saturday.
be there?
yep.
Okay.
You do work on
So-
Saturday.
I don't work my other job,
Okay.
so I'm
I was
free.
like, we're
We're
book
together,
buddies.
we're together later on. But I'll bring, so I'll bring I think, I left the day open, so we'll bring the first batch of popsicles or whatever it may be. As we run out, go get some more, bring them as the day goes on. So, a lot of traveling for you. I know we don't have anyone at after 4, is that right? Or you really want to stay?
Kevin and I will be there, kind of staffing all the booths. So if there's not somebody available to staff this booth, he and I will be there amongst all the city booths.
I think we should shut it down after we're done. And that way you all don't have to worry about trying to spread yourself thin. So I think we can make our point or do whatever we're gonna do within the time we're given.
Saturday evening tends to be pretty quiet at the booth.
I think, Sarah, you're working the 2 to 4 shift, right?
I think I am.
And I will try to stay for longer.
I think I'm on Saturday,
You're at 10 to 12, I think.
right, and then
she's-
2 to 4.
She signed up
Okay.
for 2 to 4.
But I also signed up for Friday.
I will probably be there starting at about 2, so
Tomorrow afternoon.
No, on Saturday.
Okay.
So I'll be there to kind of set up on Friday, and then I will be back on Saturday, probably about 2-ish. So I can, Sarah, if, I know you have several other commitments, so I'm happy to sit at the booth.
No, I'm good for Saturday. But I also signed up for Friday because we didn't have anybody on Friday.
We did. It would be great to have a second person. I think, Sienna, you were by yourself Friday.
Now you have a partner.
Oh, we lose somebody, what?
So Friday afternoon, from 2 to 4, 2 to 6.
4 to 6.
Okay, 4 to 6.
So you're the
Me.
first booth, you're the first one on Friday?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Then I have this.
I joined it.
Boom, up high.
Let me just pull up. I can just tell you. How's that? Tomorrow, 4 to 6 is Sienna and Sarah. 6 to 8 is Hannah and Martin. 10 is, so now Saturday, 10 to 12 is Sarah and Jen. 12 to 2 is Martin and Kaylee. And 2 to 4 is Sarah, and I can jump in there as well.
And I can also jump in, I can stay for a little bit longer,
Okay,
so that.
okay.
Thanks for all your
You
hard
good?
work, committee.
Chairs,
There will
water.
be chairs. We'll make sure there are chairs.
Can't have a fan, at least you have chairs.
I don't have anything else.
Try and look on the bright side.
Okay. Well, thank you for all your exciting goodies to hand out and the
I'm playing with
popsicles.
this thing,
It's okay. Exactly what is that?
here you
Just
go, you just push in the little.
Oh,
the
it's like,
little
this is what I wanna win.
It's like popping bubble wrap.
Oh.
It's so, like, it's
Satisfying.
a fidget.
Aha. Several years ago, the city of Chaska gave away fidget things.
Oh, the
spinners?
spinners.
Have
Spinners.
some. They will still be out tomorrow.
Ah. I think this is better than the spinner, though.
For those of us who likes to pop bubble wrap as children,
That's
this
it.
is very satisfying.
Okay. Anything else for River City Days? Do we have a theme? Just,
Fun.
just,
Human rights.
okay.
Just be fun, just be exciting, don't be
And
sterile.
we decided that we didn't have to wear the Martin's favorite color, yellow, Human Rights Commission shirts, right? But we should
Correct.
wear name tags if we've got them.
But we should wear shirts that are speak passionately about human rights.
I love public schools.
There you go.
But you can wear your yellow shirt. if
You may
if
certainly wear your yellow shirt.
It's not covered in ice cream mermaids.
All of the Superman has officially come out. I know. Moving on to MLK. Jen, you want to talk a little bit about what's happening there?
We are in the process of trying to figure out who our speaker will be. That's priority number one. And the committee will be meeting on Monday to discuss that and reach out to different speakers to see if they're available. So if anyone has any ideas about possible speakers, please email Elise before Monday.
Juana sent me hers,
Oh,
so I
good.
have a couple.
Good.
in the group.
Otherwise, I don't really have anything to update till after we meet next week.
What's that, am I not on the on that committee?
Well, we love having you on
I
the
thought,
committee.
I actually thought I was, but maybe I'm not. It's fine if I'm not, but
You are our District 112 connection.
I think,
that's kind of why sometimes it makes more sense to be on the committee, but if I'm not, for whatever reason, I feel like I was at the first meeting, and we talked
That's
about
the only meeting
Justice
we've had.
Page.
right, did you reach out at all?
I am working on it still.
Okay,
But I don't,
but I think we also still need to have more
oh, no,
options.
I agree, I was just trying to figure out, like, I didn't know anything about, so, we can follow up offline.
Okay.
I did not receive any notification of a meeting on Monday.
Okay.
So if I am not needed, that's totally fine, I don't need to be on that, if we're overburdened with people.
No, we will figure stuff out afterwards, I guess.
Well, Immigrant Voices, I think we've had a good decision or good discussion this evening about community partnerships. One thing I think was very interesting that she mentioned was the the chamber involvement. And for those of us who have been on the commission for a while, you know that Southwest Chamber of Commerce used to be one of our partners and supported us. They came and we had a successful meeting, meet and greet with the chamber between I think that was, or maybe it was following the 2 presentations that we had with Green Card Voices. Was that a day after, or was that in between the 2 of them?
I think it was at the very end, if I recall, but the exhibit was still up and we encouraged them.
Right. And so during that time that we were with the chamber folks, Juana and I were encouraged by the words that chamber members were saying, was that they wanted to be part of this event or that event, but they also wanted to be more actively recruiting potential employees and businesses. So I think for those of us who are going to be on this community involvement task committee, whatever, let's not forget our chamber friends.
I have barriers to access for employment is one of my.
Questions for the board?
No, as a possible, one of the possible things we do to partner with the chamber, because I do think that there, if you are not a native English speaker, there are systems in place in many businesses that make it difficult for jobs that don't necessarily require you to be fluent in English, so.
I agree.
Including
So does anybody have anything else for Immigrant Voices?
I think I spoke to Juana yesterday. She said she sent something on the video.
What she sent to me is, she met with Kevin and she's meeting with him late in August to bring in reps from the Historical Society, Casa, as well as Hana. And so that's what I have.
To talk about the video that has been spinning and doing nothing, but still on the agenda.
Excellent. Late August.
Yes.
So September, perhaps, we'll have something.
Yeah.
Great. Pride celebration, is there anything that we need to talk about with Pride celebration?
Not that I know.
Strategic plan, Kaylee.
Right. I think this actually dovetails nicely with the proposed request for additional funds from the city council, from my perspective. So I had volunteered to take a stab at the strategic plan, and when I was reviewing it, I was remembering the process that we went through when we made this, and we sort of purposely made it broad so that we wouldn't have to revisit it on an annual basis to adjust. So you will see just a very few, mostly cosmetic changes. Most of those are on the back page. I took out the specificity around the Chaska Cares initiative and just talked about supporting relevant city initiatives, so that gives us a little bit more flexibility there. And then added that empathetic response piece around community support under community engagement, and then added the Chaska Pride Picnic as an ongoing core effort of ours. I think one of the things that one of the reasons I wanted to revisit this, and as I was looking at it, what occurred to me was what we have not done. We did the work to create the strategic plan, but we've never really operationalized that in terms of like an annual goal setting with associated metrics. And so my proposal would be that in the fall, we would, the executive committee would get together and look at those strategic goals and identify sort of annual goals that fall under those and bring those back to the full commission for discussion. And and get the full commission's input on that. And then we would have metrics associated with things. So we're tracking like attendance and reach, surveys to the extent that we've got programs where we can do some exit surveys and those kinds of things. Because what I would like to be able to do, what I think is important as we continue to gain momentum and grow, is to be tracking the types of programming that we're doing, what's effective and what isn't, so that we're not doing the same things if we're not reaching audiences, that we're using those resources that the city has entrusted us with wisely, so that we can do an annual report to the city council to say, here's what we did the last year, here's the kind of impact we had on the community, and here's what we're looking to do in the year to come. Because I do think, I completely agree that inflation is going to be huge, and that we need to be looking at that. I think it's going to be easier for the council to say, yep, absolutely, if we're able to provide them with better metrics. And it keeps us moving. For those of you who haven't necessarily been on the commission, we have some years spent the first 3 months, it feels like, of the year trying to figure out what we're going to do. And my intention is for the executive council not to have specifics, because I do think that's the work of the full commission, is decide, okay, under these sort of 3 priorities, what are the specific programs we're going to do to fulfill this. But I do think if we're more proactive and start, the communicator in me always wants something to react to, as opposed to sitting in a meeting and just kind of spitballing. So I think I captured the conversation that we had, Sarah, but if there's anything you or Elise want to add to that, yeah, I think the changes themselves are they're just pretty cosmetic, but I think it's putting a process in place to establish some annual goals and metrics so that we can continue to, I think we're making an impact, and we just need to be able to better communicate that to our stakeholders.
I had planned at the end of the year to request time at the city council and provide them with kind of a wrap-up of what we've done this year. I think, although we will not be able to say specifically we increased our numbers by 10% because we don't have that baseline, I can say these are the kinds of things that we've seen, that we've been able to do, and we believe have had a positive impact. And so that is my plan for the end of the year. But moving that forward, I think it's a great opportunity for us to have some ideas in front of us, think about what kind of activities we want to do in 2023, hard to believe, and then set realistic expectations for those goals.
Both of you are looking this way. I took my glasses off. I can't
That's
see.
okay.
I wrote a note.
Yes.
I'm waiting for you, Martin.
Can we start thinking about a succession plan? As we start phasing out or hitting our time limits, how do we keep it going? So it's great that we have this plan here and we're doing it. But when we get to that point, who picks it up and who's been trained on how to do it? You know what I mean? I realize that most of our members are coming and going and da-da-da-da, but I think we should keep that in mind. What happens?
Absolutely.
Or how does it go? Or what are those subgroups or whatever? So that's my 3 cents. I think this is great.
I like that. Well, I guess if there's no other discussion, then I would move that we accept these amendments to the strategic plan and put into place some processes and procedures for the next calendar year to communicate our progress. Or if you just want me to move the changes, Sarah, because I see you're thinking, that's also fine.
No, your motion is good. Is there a second to Kaylee's motion?
I will second.
Excellent. So motion made by Kaylee, seconded by Jen. Is there any further discussion?
I just want to say, I love the idea of having like an annual report to look at so we can grow from it, but also just to say, here's what we're doing, is there something we're missing, that kind of thing. I think that's a great addition.
If not, all in favor of the motion to approve the strategic goals and implementation changes, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes, carry. Thank you, Kaylee, for your work. Empathetic responses, well, we could certainly create a lot of them, that's for sure, but we have nothing on our agenda unless you've heard from, okay. Calendar programs, well, that kind of dovetails into just what we were talking about. So, do we have any specificity associated with calendar and programs? Having heard none, we'll move along to the website. Do we have any updates on the website?
I am going to meet with Kevin just to talk about functionality of the website to figure out what we might, I think part of the problem is we don't know what capabilities we have in terms of what we can put up there.
Okay.
I don't know the city, I can't remember, is it city, the platform? It's very specific.
Yeah, I don't.
I can't remember what it's called, but every one of those platforms are specifically targeted for like cities versus like our final site is who does all the school district stuff. Has different functionalities, and so before we dream big and put flashing lights up there with Sarah's name, she's gonna smack me. I will do that before our August meeting.
Excellent. I did touch base with Kevin today and made sure that the Kindness 112 information for folks to bring school supplies to the Human Rights Commission booth be added to the site or to, so it's on now. And that kind of leads us into our, is there anything else about the website?
Can I ask a 112% kindness question?
Yes.
If folks don't have the things that day, can you remind me where they can drop them off another day? If they see the bucket and they're like, oh yeah, I don't have, can I bring school supplies elsewhere?
Yes, that's my house.
That's your
So
house?
I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. So we'll just give out your address.
Maybe they can drop
Maybe
it
we're
in
just-
City Hall.
I was gonna say,
Yeah.
we could leave a bucket here, I can inform the
I
front
would say,
desk,
let's not send
and
people to your house. I'm gonna speak on behalf of your mother. who's
Yes.
Probably not happy about that.
yeah, we can collect them here, and then I'll contact you to pick them up.
That
or
sounds good.
Deliver them
plan.
to your house. or however you decide to do it.
I understand the basement is full.
Oh, yes.
Awesome. That's
Great.
awesome.
HRC logo. I had Kevin print our HRC logo. I believe this was before your time and my time that this was created. I think it was created by a student. But I do not know that as a fact. What I would like to suggest is that this logo might need an update, a refreshing kind of thing. And so I had the opportunity to talk with Cindy Anderson, who is with the Carter County Arts Consortium. And she suggested two options. One, I think we will probably say no thank you to, but option one would be is that we contract with an commercial person, an artist, a creative person to design a new logo for us. We would pay for that, and then that would be the end of that commitment. Option two is that the Arts Consortium would be willing to partner with us and send out kind of the parameters of what it is that we're looking for. They do a monthly newsletter to artists and to the high school art departments and integrated arts community. And so we would be responsible for defining what kinds of things we would want featured in a logo. what were key factors that we wanted illustrated. She suggested that we keep that opportunity available for 60 days, which if we chose to be a partner with the Arts Consortium, they would be willing to promote that beginning in September, October, November. We could make a decision for a new logo conceivably in December, and kicking off in January with our celebration of Dr. King, promote our new logo. One of the things that she suggested is that we establish a dollar amount. And I said, well, what are the dollar amount parameters for something like this? Is it $25? Is it $2,500? And she said, well, Sarah. But the reality is that I think we have some funds available that we could offer a small, call it a stipend, or an award for logos that, or a logo that we selected. So that's what I have done about following up on the logo and for us as a commission. So I'm open to ideas, but we talked about this briefly at last month's meeting, and I wanted to make sure that we could start thinking about this, certainly if we wanted to do something with the Arts Consortium beginning in September.
I like that idea of the Arts Consortium spreading the word, because it's going to a very specific audience who we want to hear it. But I wonder, would we also be able to open it up to just the community in general? Maybe there's someone in Chaska that is not part of the Arts Consortium that would have just the thing we need, you know? So could we make it more of an open call and maybe advertise on social media or in the paper or something?
I didn't get the sense that the Arts Consortium was exclusive.
Well, no, I don't think
Right.
it is, but I mean, if they're the ones that are willing to get the word out to
Right.
their members and to the high school teachers, but there may be some,
Sure.
you know, 60-year-old person living in Chaska who does not have kids in school.
Right.
And so they won't get that newsletter or that
Sure.
information.
Of course. I think that can easily be done.
Yeah.
If we want to pursue that. I mean, I don't know how passionate we all are about changing this logo.
I think it could use a refresh.
Okay? Martin? What do you think?
It can be changed. For me, it's kind of like let's just get it done, get it over with, don't let it drag on. We have so much other stuff to do. Not to say that's not important, but I'm kind of in favor of just going to like a 24-hour logo and have people compete, design different whatevers we can pick and then move on. It's kind of the same thing, but you set your price. So you're going to pay $100 and they're going to design whatever. You get your logo, but you get the same logo that's going to fit on a business card or envelope. It doesn't have to be adjusted. They do all that for you. You pick what you want and you walk away. But I also see the benefit of allowing people from your community to create it. So that's my 2 cents. I didn't give you whole things.
Okay? Hannah?
Yeah, I think it would be good to update. I think the puzzle pieces send a particular message that is, you know, of, you know, one community or one issue, that is an important community and issue, but not all encompassing of what we do. So I think it's probably a good idea to look at that. And I like the idea of involving other folks, both for
being involved in the community and for more people to know what we're doing and that we're here and, yeah. See what's important to our community members. Yeah.
Could it, sorry, my brain doesn't work the way it takes a while. I have to listen to other people talk. Could it be, is it possible to reach out to our Latin community, Somalian, Native American, whatever we got going on in Chaska, and asking those different groups, do you have artists? Then have those artists come together and design a logo. It may take a year, but then you get a logo or you get a human rights commission that may represent the community. And then you can tie in with Casa or these other groups to say, hey, look, we brought you in to kind of look at this.
I think the thing I struggle with that is that, like, you need to pay people for their time. And I don't.
Do you though?
I 100%, like, if we're gonna ask people to submit a design, there should be some sort of financial like, unless it's like a high school kid experience thing, and even then, I think there's a lot of people, especially in the field of graphic design, who are asked to create things and then are not compensated for them. And to be perfectly honest, I mean, designing the Chaska Human Rights Commission logo would be a feather in my cap, but I don't know, it's not like it's the Major League Baseball logo, or it's got traction in terms of that. I don't think it needs to be a ton, but I think to Cindy Anderson's point, if you're asking people to do the labor, then there should be at least some sort of compensation at the end for whomever gets picked, so that people then have the choice of whether or not they want to do something for free.
Then you'd have to increase the budget. I'm just being, if we're going to compensate someone, then the money has to be there to compensate them next year, right? If we're going to have all these things going, and then how much do we compensate them? Is it 500? Is it 1,000?
I wasn't thinking anything.
No, I wasn't.
I mean,
I was thinking more like 100.
Max, let's see.
But I also know that $100 sometimes is tough for people to donate, so.
then,
I can also just call up Kevin and say, Kevin, we want a new logo, would you please work on it? I think that, I mean, that certainly is an option for us, but
is that his expertise, though? He's communicating.
I honestly don't know.
Kevin does everything.
He does everything. But
And he does everything well.
We bring it back to the staff, and as you watch, she's going to staff the booth all weekend long. She's worked all week. This is her, Kevin. If you go somewhere, Kevin. I was just somewhere, and Kevin was there yesterday. He was there. I saw him over the weekend.
Right.
I think they're good and they're what they do, but they need to relax as well. I think if we want to change it, then we pay to change it. And then we put it in the budget for it to happen. And if it's not approved by the city council or whatever, then we cut from something else to make it work. And if it's $100, $200, it's $200. What's this person's, or these people, what are they worth? And then what does this represent? Does that make sense? When she stood here and she talked for however long she talked for about us being part of our community, what does this represent? Do we put the effort into it? You understand what I'm saying? I'm not trying to downplay anything, but if we're going to do it, then let's do it and then make it represent something. What I see when I look at this, I know it's in black and white. I don't know what the original color is. I've only seen it in black and white.
It's black and white. It's black and white.
Yeah.
Then I got white folks, I got black folks.
Exactly.
They make a puzzle, they make a piece, we're great. What about the brown folks and the red folks and whatever folks are in there? And so I think we should then put some effort into it, and if it takes a year, put it on there, and then we set it up. To take that time to get something that represents what we want to do. Because ultimately it's your brand, right? We're walking around in this yellow shirt with this logo on it, and it was great that it was created by this student. Now we've evolved. What's it gonna look like? How does it represent the LGBTQ plus? I left something out. How does it represent them? How does it represent our Latin community? How does it represent our Caucasian community, or African community, Somalian, whatever? How does it represent everyone? And I think maybe that's gonna take some time to figure out. That's now my 3 cents. Now I'm gonna shut up because it's 8 o'clock.
Did Cindy give you parameters when you asked her about what is a fair prize amount? Or not really?
Not really,
Okay.
but I think the $100 figure, I think I said that out loud, because I said, I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
What would be a fair thing? I am not a creative individual, so it would take me a lot of hours to think about the colors and everything. So if my time is money, then I wouldn't be a good candidate to try to design something. But, I mean, if we have it as a, an award,
Okay.
or,
Open call for submissions, and then the panel decides what.
right, we would, and then at the end, there'd be a monetary reward and a handshake and a picture with all of us.
But it's
But Martin, you've raised an excellent
it's
point.
a gateway into, you know, when she's talking about, we just want to feel accepted, right? We just want to feel part of the community. So if we reach out to them, maybe they say no. Maybe they say, we don't know anybody's going to do it for free, then we move on. But what if there is someone who wants to do it for free? Because it makes them feel like they're part of the community, they're important. You're going to see my artwork in the city. You're going to see people walk around with it, or a group of people, I don't know. I'm not an artist, so it's hard for me to. If you ask my wife, she'd say, no one wants to work for free. Stop calling me, asking me to do something, and I'll get recognition for it. I don't want that. I want cash money. But maybe there is someone who wants to. I mean, everyone is different, but
Can it be the same, like, can we do the $100 prize competition and then and spread the word to Casa and other groups and say, hey, this is happening, the Arts Consortium's putting it on, we want, if you have anyone that is interested, then they can still get the $100.
I think that they're willing to work with us, the Arts Consortium. I would probably initiate another conversation with her and say, okay, these are the thoughts that we've had from our meeting tonight, and how we want to be more inclusive in our community. How else can we spread the word about this opportunity? And I can bring that back to you, yes, before September's meeting, because we'll have a meeting in August. If we wanted to proceed with the September newsletter broadcast kind of thing. But if we want to delay it and say that we want to think about it more, we want to expand the outreach more, we can certainly. I mean, there's nothing magical about the next 60 days or 90 days, however many more days it is to the end of the year. But I definitely think that it's time that we refresh our logo.
To Hannah's point, even within that community, the puzzle is a very polarizing symbol, so I think I would get rid of that.
Yep.
I like that idea.
Okay,
Talk to her
fine.
again.
I will do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But I also liked your timeline. I mean, it doesn't have to be that fast if we're feeling rushed, but I like the rollout in January as new people come on, and I think that's a good idea, but no one should feel rushed, I don't think.
Okay. Any new business?
I'll have a community center update, I think. Something substantial maybe, and September. End of September,
Okay?
maybe?
Great.
Our next meeting is August 25th, 2022. One other thing I just wanted to update you all on is that I have contacted the city of Mankato, the city of Shakopee, and the city of Eden Prairie. The city of Mankato, at their next city council meeting, next week, I believe, will proceed with a land acknowledgement. And so I've contacted them. I have their draft, but spoken with their planning department. Similarly, I have the Eden Prairie one. And I contacted Michael Persky at the City of Shakopee Planning and Development Office. He did not get back to me, so we'll see if that's something that, and this might be something that we would take to City Council and say, this is one of the recommendations we have, potentially. So.
We had, I think Kaylee and I and Nate had actually met with the city of Eden Prairie about this a few years ago before the pandemic, and it kind of fell off the radar. They gave us some great insight into how to go about doing something like that, and so I probably have some notes from that I can provide you. But it's, I think it's something that could be a really great thing for the Human Rights Commission to take up as something they want to work on, as long as we find some really great partners within, the Native community and the History Center, some different groups, so that we get it right. And I think what we had talked about is that once we have some ideas about, after meeting with these groups, when we have some ideas about what we want to do with it, then we as a commission can bring something to City Council to present to them and start a discussion about how this would be used. I know Eden Prairie has a couple different versions that they use for different occasions and for different like printed material versus a public meeting or something. So I think it's a very worthwhile thing to get back into looking into. But I know that there is quite a bit of groundwork that needs to be done before we can even really move very far with it.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay.
And that's what the people who I've talked with have said.
Yeah.
What? Okay. Is there any other business?
Motion to adjourn?
Okay,
Second.
all right. Aye.
Aye.
Motion to adjourn. Thank you all for your patience and for our viewing public.